Hello, everyone. There we are. Hi. Oh, thank you for joining me, Omir. All right, thanks. I so appreciate you coming. This is actually my third Periscope in a row. Oh, thank you for joining me. Barbecue 007110702. Thank you for joining me. I'm Sandy Peckinpah, and this is my third Periscope in a row. I made a commitment to myself this week that I would start Periscoping on a regular basis. You know, I had a radio show for many years in Northern California and in Phoenix, Arizona, and that was so much easier than Periscope. I don't know why, but I think it's just the fact that I didn't even have to put on lipstick for radio, and it was a fun experience. But who am I? Well, and why should you be here? I'm so glad that you are listening. I'm Sandy Peckinpah, and I'm a writer and a coach, and writing is actually my passion. And I love helping women define a clear and strategic plan for having clarity and confidence so that they can enter the second act of their life with a plan and excitement and passion. And so that's what I talk about, that's what I speak about, and that's what I write about. I've been writing for many years. Oh, someone else joined us. Thank you. I have been writing for many years, and it started with writing with my husband, who was in the entertainment business. And we had several series on the air on CBS and USA Network. And writing has always been something that has really gotten me excited, and I wake up in the morning wanting to do it. And what I discovered in writing is that every person has a story, and every story has meaning and purpose. And as a writer, you try to get the story arc correct so that, you know, the beginning, here you are, this is who you are, and then something happens and it changes you. And then the story moves on to the climax of how it changes you, and then at the end you've become someone entirely new and something very dramatic has happened. And that's the way our lives are. And that's what I love talking to people about, because in reframing your own story, there's power in that. You can reframe your story, and you can go back and look at the things that you thought maybe were horrible times in your life or challenging times, and suddenly, with new perspective and new eyes, you can make them something remarkable. And it leads you into the next act of your life with more strength, more power. You know, you can become the person that you always wanted to be. So what I want to talk about today is that I realized in looking back on the chapters of my life, the things that I thought were the most difficult actually became my greatest assets. And especially since I love to write, the thing that really started me writing on my own was giving birth to my daughter, who was born with a birth defect. And at the time, I thought that's the worst thing that could ever happen to me, because I had a fairy tale life. I had, you know, great family, and we had, success and wonderful friends and wonderful family. And I left no room for perfection. For imperfection, I should say. I left no room for imperfection. And suddenly, I had this beautiful baby that was born with a cleft, a mouth that was very different than I anticipated. And through that love that I developed in realizing the beauty of imperfection, I created a story because I wanted to arm her with a book when she started her first day of school, because I knew that kids would be asking, why does she have scars? She was going to have surgery. And so I decided to arm her with a book. And we went into the schools with that book. My best friend is Melissa Gilbert from Little House on the Prairie. And the two of us went into the schools before Julianne ever started and started reading our book all over Los Angeles. We even went to Chicago and other places in the United States and started talking about The Beauty of Imperfection. And I'm telling you, it was life-changing for me to see the power of words and how reframing my story had the capability of changing other people's lives. And I'm so grateful to Melissa because she just embraced it wholeheartedly. She loves children. She'll do anything to help a child have a better life. And so I was very fortunate to have her work with me on that project. And lo and behold, that story ended up, I got a call years later from a little boy who was in the audience at the time that Melissa and I had read the book. And he called me and said, you know, I have always remembered that book, and now I'm a music producer, and I want to do a spoken word CD with music and be able to put it out there for everyone to listen to, for children to listen to. Well, he said it changed his life, and this was 20 years later after I had read it to him in school. And I'm telling you, there was nothing more satisfying than that feeling of knowing that somehow what you've done, your tragedy, became someone else's triumph. And wow, I still have goosebumps thinking about it. And it ended up being a spoken word CD. It's still available on Amazon. My book was called Rosie the Imperfect Angel. And it was, Melissa did the voiceover for it, and Marlee Matlin wrote the liner notes for it, and the Moscow Symphony Orchestra did the music. Michael Alden, who is the producer of it, and he's a Broadway producer doing so well in his life right now. I'm so proud of him. And he was the one who coordinated the whole thing, and it made it to the Grammy ballot in 2009. So anyway, you can imagine that it was a big surprise that something that I created out of my own story became something that could help other people. So there's one more thing that happened after that. I tragically lost my 16-year-old son to meningitis. And it was not an easy path for me, and that truly was the worst thing that could happen. Well, in the path of my recovery, my grief recovery, I realized that the steps I was taking, I was documenting, because as a writer, that's the first thing I think about is writing. So I started a journal. And then I started documenting the steps that I took to recover from the loss of my son. And I realized that this was one more book that could have the power to change lives. So I took my journal and started creating some of the steps that I took, and I call them stepping stones in my book. And I created a book for parents who are struggling with the loss of a child. And I'm so proud to say it was published in 2014. And again, it was one more way that I found I could make a difference in people's lives. And there is nothing more satisfying than that. So what I want to share with you is that if you look back on your life and you realize that you are unique, your story has power. And there is, oops, that's my phone, it's so loud, sorry. It's going to ring 3 more times, I think, before it picks up. That's live for you. You can't stop that. But anyway, all right, it's going to go one more. Sorry. Anyway, thank you for hanging in there with me while my phone rings. Okay, I forgot to turn that off. Anyway, if you look at the chapters of your life and you realize that you are unique and your story is unique, just as my story of my daughter being born with a cleft, that story became part of my legacy, but it's what I did with it that actually became the legacy. And you know, there's something so powerful about being the age I am, because I can look back at my life and I can see the chapters, and I have a broader view of what everything actually meant, how it all fit together. Like, did I know when I was reading my book to that little boy in 6th grade that someday he would become a music producer and it would change his life and then he'd want to do something with that book? No, I didn't know that then, but I had to trust that whatever I was going through was going to make a difference in my life and in other people's lives. So what I'm saying is, don't resist your thinking because, and also don't restrict it. Because if you look at the things that happen and only have one opinion about it, you have no strength in changing it. And so what I urge you to do is write down the chapters of your life and look at them as a positive and a negative. What did you take from it, and what positive came from it, and what negative came from it? And I can look at the story of the loss of my son, and I can tell you that it absolutely is the hardest thing that I have gone through and hopefully will ever go through. But what Garrett's death did was give me a way to relate to other people and an avenue to be able to help other people in their lives going through the same thing. And in his death, he gave me the ability to write a book that could change lives. And I am so grateful for that. And does it make up for my son being gone? No, nothing does. But can I look back on it and find a little shred of peace and meaning? Yes, I can absolutely find that. And so that brings me a lot of peace and satisfaction. So in looking at your story again, I came up with some ideas in a blog post several months ago, and actually my blog post is on my website, Sandy Peckinpah, sandypeckinpah.com. There you go. And that blog post is called 7 Steps to Successful Goal Setting for the Emerging Woman. I came up with some ideas that I'm going to share with you for just a few more minutes. And I realized that I think I need to read these every day, because sometimes I think as women in the world today, we're bombarded with so many things, and it's so hard to be all things to all people. And so what I realized is that, number one, I don't have to know everything in order to move forward with my plan. I can build some of it as I go. And so that's sort of what I'm doing with a Periscope, is that, and you know what, if you feel like you want to give me hearts, I would be so grateful, because I think I only have 17 hearts. And so anyway, the thing is that in order to move forward, sometimes you don't know what's going on. You don't know what the greater plan is. And so if you build it as you go, like this Periscope, my commitment to doing Periscope every day for the next week is really hard. I sat here and kept thinking, do I push that button broadcast? It is so hard to do when you're struggling to get in front of a camera. I know it, and yet I didn't have a plan other than I knew what I wanted to talk about. So anyway, you don't have to have the perfect plan in place. You can build some of it as you go. Number 2 is, I'm not Wonder Woman. I don't have to do everything. I can do what I want with love, and I can get help with the rest. I can hire it out or ask friends or family to help me. For so long I could never ask for help. And finally, I think that was one of the things that I took out of my the loss of my child, is I learned how to ask for help when I need it. And I hope that you all don't have any resistance to asking for help when you need it, because it's the one thing that surrounded me with the strength to keep moving forward. Number 3 is this is a big one, being on the computer doesn't mean that I'm working. I need to clearly set boundaries for working. Like, I can't have Facebook going in the background or Periscope going in the background or alerts going on my email, because what happens is you get distracted so easily. And so I realized that being on my computer, I have to designate times that I'm actually working. Number 4 is sometimes when things don't happen the way that I want it, it's actually the better plan. I'm now aware that goals shift and change, and sometimes they grow bigger than you can ever imagine. And so when something doesn't happen the way you planned, don't take it as a failure. Sometimes it grows bigger. For instance, when my first book was was no longer being published, the publisher went out of business, but the bigger plan was it was going to be a spoken word CD. Now, how in the world could I have known that? Amazing. So remember that sometimes the bigger plan is just, through the next door. Number 5, consistency makes me better at what I do, and that's why I committed to doing Periscope Live for the next several days, because getting more consistent, I realized that I have the ability to get better at it, and that's what I hope to do. Number 6, I need to honor myself for the things that I have accomplished, and so often we forget that. So please, please honor yourself for the things that you've accomplished, and don't get hung up on the things that maybe didn't go the way that you had planned, or things tanked. I don't know. Just consider the fact that you're here now. You have a whole life ahead of you, and sometimes you just don't give yourself enough credit for the things that you have done. And you know how I do that? Sometimes you just need to ask your friends and family, when you think about me, what do you think are the things that I'm most powerful in doing and having had done, and how much influence did I have in your life? And you could say, I just really need to know right now because I'm feeling not so great about myself. Can you help me with that? And I'm telling you, friends and family are the best at lifting you up when you're ready. So number 7, and this is the last one, is today is all we really have. So we need to make the best of it. And I learned that the hard way. I've experienced a lot of loss in my life, and the one thing that I know is a day doesn't go by without me saying that I love my children, I love my husband, I love my life, and I'm just going to keep going. And so thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm going to be back tomorrow because I made myself that promise. Again, my website is sandypeckinpah.com, and I have a lot of blogs on resilience and success principles and life after loss and life in the next chapter. I love helping people with that, so I appreciate you being here and I only have 3 people right now, but you know what? Tomorrow it may be 4, and I'm so happy. The first day I didn't have anybody, so there you go. I'm still making this commitment. But thank you so much for joining me. You are awesome, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.